Phil Twyford.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I want to acknowledge the stunning election victory of Justin Trudeau and the Liberals in Canada. What a fantastic result. And with Stephen Harper's demise, another Tory acolyte of John Key bites the dust. First it was Tony Abbott, now Stephen Harper.
The Key curse.
It's the Key curse. It is the Key curse. It's the kiss of death. It's the kiss of death getting close to John Key. Who knows how long Malcolm Turnbull will last. And speaking of Malcolm Turnbull, what a sad, weak figure the Prime Minister cut at his joint press conference with Malcolm Turnbull on the weekend. The combined diplomatic powers of Murray McCulley and John Key, the text to Julie Bishop, the forthright conversation at the football, it all amounted to nothing. Because the Prime Minister in these matters is weak. He rolled over for Malcolm Turnbull, and Malcolm Turnbull tickled the Prime Minister's tummy. See, our Prime Minister, he's the king of the selfie. He loves the selfie, all right? He's reduced international relations to a few rounds of golf. But when it matters, when the chips are down and Kiwis need someone to stand up for them and be forthright and tell a few home truths, where's the Prime Minister? He's nowhere to be seen. He's the golfing partner to the rich and famous. He wants to be everybody's friend, but he couldn't level with the Australian Prime Minister and speak the truth. See, our Anzac mates are holding hundreds of Kiwis in detention centres, including in Christmas Island. They're deporting people who are guilty of even the most low-level crimes, people who have lived, in some cases, their entire adult lives in Australia. They've paid taxes for decades, they've raised their families and lived their lives in Australia, but they are being deported to detention centres and then shipped out of the country. It's wrong, it's not how you treat your mates, and it's certainly not how you treat family. So who will stand up for New Zealanders in this case? Who will? John Key won't. He's weak. He doesn't like to have the hard conversations with Malcolm Turnbull. And Mr Speaker, I'll tell you who will stand up for New Zealanders. Andrew Little will, Kelvin Davis will, and the New Zealand Labour Party will. Someone has to stand up for New Zealanders because this Prime Minister is not up to the job. Not only will the government not stand up for New Zealand, but it is actively selling out this country. Tim Grosser and John Key went to the TPPA negotiations and they traded away the right of future governments in this country to legislate in the interests of New Zealanders. They gave away the ability of future governments to ban non-resident foreigners from buying land and housing in this country. That, Mr Speaker, sticks in the craw. It undermines our sovereignty. And I can understand it if the National Party has a different view about what the best housing policy should be. You'd expect that. But I don't expect the National Party to trade away the power and the right of future governments to legislate in the interests of New Zealanders. Andrew Little's Labour Party comes to this Parliament to make laws that strengthen our nation and improve the lives of New Zealanders. It goes against everything that we stand for, that this government would go to an international trade negotiations and trade away this Parliament's right to legislate in the interests of New Zealanders. They have sold out this country. They have betrayed the people of New Zealand. By their own admission, they didn't even try to carve out a protection for New Zealanders to implement this kind of policy in future, as Australia did and as several other parties to the TPPA did. They care so little for the sovereignty of our country, our right to legislate in the public interest. They just gave it away. What a damning, damning indictment. Meanwhile, Mr Speaker, in the Auckland housing market, billions of dollars of land and housing are being sold off under the feet of New Zealanders because this government will not stand up for New Zealanders. They stand on the side of foreign property speculators. They will not stand up to Malcolm Turnbull and speak up for the interests of New Zealanders in detention in Australia. New Zealanders deserve much better.
The Honourable Maggie Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.